Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater. Today is September 11th, 2017, and there's a lot of good movie news to cover today. First and foremost, though, I want to update yesterday's video. I want to say that originally the reports came out that it had grossed $117 million during the course of its opening weekend. That is actually not accurate. It did $123 million. Dang. The movie is just blowing up everywhere. People are loving it. The sequel apparently is on track for a 2019 release from what I'm reading. However, anything could change in that time frame. Warner's is not one to shy away from yearly releases. Even though the screenwriters aren't done with the script just yet, they're prepping to go into it sometime in early 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if Warner's fast tracks the script, which would be a bad idea, and tries to get the movie in production by January of 2018 in order to get it out in the fall to capitalize on this film's success. That does seem to be what Warner likes to do in some of these cases. Hopefully they'll give it time to gestate and happen naturally, but executives are going to executive, and who knows what's going to happen. But anyway, I just wanted a quick update on that one. Let's jump into the first story of the day, which apparently is all about a biopic, right? Apparently, at the recent Wizard World Nashville, Stan Lee was giving a Q&A, and someone asked him about the potential of him ever actually having a biopic made about him. And he actually said, yeah, someone's been talking about it, and it's Leonardo DiCaprio, of all people. Saying here, believe it or not, I've already discussed it with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's a neighbor of mine, and we were talking one day some months ago, and he said, boy, it'd be fun to do your story on the screen. So I said, well, I'll audition you. Got to make sure the guy can do it. So that's basically all that was said. It was you know, a little anecdotal tale about 94-year-old Stan Lee talking to 40-something-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio about the idea of doing a Stan Lee biopic. And given the success of Marvel, given the success of the MCU, given the success of everything related to comic books, at least in terms of film since the summer of 2000, it would make sense that Stan Lee would get a biopic at some point in time. There's a movie coming out in a few months that's kind of about the creation of the character of Wonder Woman, which does look interesting, and this story could easily be told the right way and give us a good look at the background of Stan Lee, his work at Marvel, his work creating these characters, and then leading through his life. I don't quite know how they would, you know, fictionalize it enough to make it interesting, but I'm pretty sure Stan Lee would be able to give them some tips because he's been doing this kind of thing for a long time. And if DiCaprio is on board to do it, and they can get a director on board to do it, and Lee's on board as well as maybe to produce it or to, you know, help out or wherever, I'm pretty sure that they'd be able to get this film financed in no time at all. And if you want my honest opinion, I'm pretty sure Disney would be the one willing to do it. All right, so jumping over into DC news, Wonder Woman came out a few months ago and has been doing gangbusters. We know that it's been going neck and neck with Spider-Man in terms of global box office. Trust me, the movie blogging websites have absolutely no problem reporting this fact every single day. Wonder Woman now beat out this one movie from 15 years ago. It's like, oh, we get it. It's a popular movie. You don't need to keep driving that point home every single day. It's not going to make people go see the movie more. A lot of them have already seen it, and they're just waiting for the movie to drop on Blu-ray in the next week. So there's that. But that being said, a sequel is coming out December 13th, 2019, which is a really late in the year release, but it's one that's been solidified as profitable by Star Wars and as well as Avatar, and so on and so forth. And they want to give us that movie then, which I'm totally on board with. It gives them time to actually create a good sequel. They're not trying to rush through a 2-year development, shooting, post-production process. But now we learned that Patty Jenkins has in fact closed the deal to direct the movie. Now this was pretty much all set in stone. All right, we already knew this was going to happen. The movie comes out. It's her second feature film, I think, and she made, you know, $800 million worldwide. As I said, the movie news sites really love to drive that point home. So her getting a good payout from Warner's to direct the movie or direct the sequel was a guarantee. There was like no ifs, ands, or buts about that. What I find to be interesting about this, though, is the direction of which they're going to take the sequel. Now, we don't know much in terms of story. We do know that Chris Pine has an option to be in it, and given the amount of money that the first one earned, it would be dumb of him to not jump on board, you know, to find a way for Steve Trevor to come back, given the events of what happened at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, he dies, in case you didn't already know. But like I've done a previous video about this where I talked about a plot outline that could work. Flash goes back, rescues him last minute. They end up getting caught in the Cold War, because that's apparently where the sequel is going to take place. It's not going to be a direct sequel to Justice League or Man of Steel or whatever else is coming down the pipeline. Wonder Woman 2 apparently is going to take place in the 80s, and Chris Pine is still, you know, he can come back if they want him to come back. The key thing to keep in mind here is that Geoff Johns and Patty Jenkins are developing the script themselves. Warner's is moving away from the Zack Snyder vision for the DCEU, much to the cheering and clapping of many fans. They didn't like the grim, dark approach. They love Wonder Woman's more hope and optimism approach, which I felt really did work for the movie itself. So when looking at what they want to do and the fact that Johns and Jenkins are working together hand in hand on this, Snyder's not really involved. However, I'm sure he'll be listed as an executive producer. We can see where they're going to probably take this particular story. And if they can find a way to bring in Steve Trevor, as well as any other cast members, like Etta, for example, right? Because Etta has been a big hit off that. I mean, Warner shot a little stinger that they put at the end of the digital version, as well as the home video version of Wonder Woman, a little bit more with Etta. So bringing her back in for the sequel would probably be, well, good. But then again, how would they work that in narratively, considering the fact that their entire interactions with one another were all cataloged and documented on screen in the film? So even though the idea of Wonder Woman flows around Greek mythology, how they plan on doing it is still anyone's guess. And hopefully they don't go too far outside of the realm of possibility, because audiences can only suspend disbelief for so much, even when it comes to DC characters. But that being said, I do have full faith that Patty Jenkins will be able to bang out an exceptional movie. Wonder Woman clearly is one of my top favorite movies of the year. I very much loved what she did with it. I loved that it was different from the DCEU as a whole, and it was hope and it was full of optimism. And that's something I do hope that they carry on into the sequel. All right, so jumping over into the Hellboy reboot news. A few weeks ago, it was reported that Ed Skrein had backed out of the role of Major Daimio because the character is of Japanese-American descent, and Ed Skrein is about as white as my toilet paper. So, you know, people were upset, called cultural appropriation, more further whitewashing in Hollywood, and that basically ended up killing, you know, making him back out. And I don't blame him necessarily. It was a good career move for him, and it does open up the role for a person of Asian descent to play the character. Well, now we're hearing reports that Dae Kim might be coming on board to take on that role, and this is really interesting because I might have called it then, but I don't know if I said it in my video before, but I definitely had the thought that given the Dae Kim Grace Park exit from Hawaii Five-0 over a pay dispute, them claiming that they weren't paid as much as the other actors because they were Asian, and then this particular situation with whitewashing accusations and that actor stepping down, leaving that role open, it just seems to make sense that Dae Kim would either be approached for it or would approach them for it. If you want my honest opinion here, I would assume that Neil Marshall and company making the Hellboy reboot probably approached Dae Kim like, hey, listen, we find ourselves in very similar situations. How would you like to come on board and be on this movie? And I'm not against it. Dae Kim is a very good actor, and so coming on board to take on a role like this would be good for all parties involved. You would get a good actor that would be maybe not 100% culturally accurate, given the fact that he's Korean and the character is of Japanese descent. But in the eyes of most people out there, when it comes to this sort of thing, they're not going to care. As long as it's an Asian dude, it doesn't matter if they're Filipino or Japanese or Korean or Pacific Islander or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as it's an Asian person and not a white dude, a lot of the naysayers will be very happy. And so, fine. But the thing is, the production team will actually get a better actor out of Dae Kim than they would Ed Skrein. I have nothing against Ed Skrein. I liked him in Deadpool. He was okay in Transporter. But Dae Kim, I think, will bring a lot more character to this character, or personality to the character, than vice versa. And so we'll have to wait and see if it's confirmed. Right now, they're just apparently in talks. But the news broke, which pretty much means that the deal is on the table and that they've been heavily discussing it. And they're probably looking to see what the backlash is or what the response is to this news coming out of everyone in movie news land. And given how most of them tend to lean to the left, you're going to see this one championed from the hilltops, people running up, criers running through the streets of Hollywood. Hear ye, Daniel Dae Kim takes over whitewash role in Hellboy reboot. Back to Asian, they're going to do that whole thing because that's how they virtue signal these particular actions. That being said, look, it's good that the role will be taken over by a better actor. One who does fit the part more closely than the previous one. So we'll just have to wait to see if it's confirmed, and then we'll have to wait to see if the movie itself is any good, because it goes into production next month, and it comes out a year from next month. So with any luck, Hellboy, The Rise of the Blood Queen, with this new edition, will only be for the better. All right, jumping over into box office news. Rotten Tomatoes has been a topic of contention for quite some time. Many years, many people either love it or they hate it. I'm actually of the latter on that particular case. I will look at it, but I only look at it as just an idea of what to expect and never actually treat it as anything that could be considered gospel. A lot of people out there look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores as gospel and use it as as kind of a metric for whether or not a movie is good, before they've even seen it themselves, rather than maybe this is what to expect, which is unfortunate. But a lot of people in Hollywood have treated Rotten Tomatoes as it's like a blight, more so than a blessing, right? Got Brett Ratner and a few others come to mind on that particular one. And the people who run Rotten Tomatoes, as well as the movie bloggers who are featured on Rotten Tomatoes, have come out and they're just like, okay, it's not our fault, you guys. It's like totally not our fault, okay? But it goes back and forth. Some studies have said that, or some statements have said that Rotten Tomatoes directly influences people going to the movies. But actually, a data scientist by the name of Yves Bergquist did a study just recently, looked at the data, crunched the numbers, and came to a completely different conclusion. Actually, that they had no impact whatsoever. And this is what he has to say. I collected box office return data through Box Office Mojo for all 150 titles released in 2017 that grossed more than 1 million. Plugged in Rotten Tomatoes scores and audience scores for all the titles, and looked at the correlation between scores and financial performance through both a basic person product moment correlation coefficient, a PMCC analysis, and some linear modeling to extract R-squares, which measure the strength of the correlation. PMCC measures the linear correlation between the two variables x and y. It has value between +1, parentheses 100% positive correlation, and -1, parentheses 100% negative correlation, often called inverse correlation. The closer to zero a PMCC score, the less correlation there is between x and y. In layman's terms, what he's basically saying there, the result, nope. The math is pretty overwhelmingly in saying there was no positive or negative correlation in 2017 between Rotten Tomatoes scores and box office returns. So there we go. Okay, a data scientist crunched the numbers for this entire year and basically found out there's no direct correlation between a film's success and its Rotten Tomatoes scores, which actually does more to damage the movie bloggers than it does anything else. Now listen, I'm a person who watches movies. I talk about them on my channel. You can take my word for it or not. That's entirely up to you. But I always say this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to tell you to see it or not to see it. I'm not trying to be part of some metric that would, somehow alter your judgment on a film or something along those lines. I look at Rotten Tomatoes as more of a blight just in terms of who wields it as a weapon, which gets really under my skin very quickly. Never mind the fact that with Ghostbusters last year, the movie clearly was certified fresh through some weird form of wizardry, in my opinion. Because they had a 68% and it was considered fresh. Given how they certify things that are fresh, it was very weird. It felt very out of place. The audience score wasn't good. A lot of the reviews weren't good. But Sony used that certified fresh as a way to market the film. So when I have a problem with Rotten Tomatoes, it's not just the platform. It's just not how it's interpreted. It's also how the studios will wield it as a marketing tool when they can, and then they attack it when they can't. And it's hypocrisy on the studio side which is something that I don't like. And then there's also a lot of, kind of whining on the blogger side, which is them acting like, oh, I contributed to that Rotten Tomatoes score. Apparently I mean more than I thought I did. And that's one of the reasons why I have a lot of contempt for those kind of people who are working in the movie news industry. So at the end of the day, Rotten Tomatoes is just another website to go and get a combination of opinions. You should take it with a very heavy grain of salt, but realize that its particular data has no general impact on you. It really doesn't. A lot of times people aren't going to see movies for a multitude of reasons. The economy is either up, the economy is either down, there's other things that are going on, and there might also be the fact that you've got movies that are coming out 3 times a week during the summer box office season, and people just don't have the time and the money to go see movies all the time. One of the reasons why there was a huge 3-week slump in Hollywood just recently, with Hitman's Bodyguard hitting number 1 3 weeks in a row, and it's a pretty fun movie. But then it comes out and just blows everything else away, just blows it out of the water. And it had nothing to do with Rotten Tomatoes. That had everything to do with just how the movies are spaced, how the movies are marketed, and how the movies are released. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And the thing is, Hollywood, I think, knows this, but when it comes to having movies fail in the box office, like so many have over this summer and the previous few summers, they need a scapegoat. So they do turn on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not the most genuine thing in my opinion. There's plenty to hate Rotten Tomatoes for. But using them as a scapegoat for you putting out bad movies that you overpaid for is not going to work any further. And now we have the scientific data to back that up. Okay, guys, finally today we're going to be talking about Halloween. I know what you're thinking. Oh God, another Halloween movie. Do we really need another one? Wasn't H2O enough? Weren't we just... we should just move on from this stuff. Well, it turns out this one is a little bit different than what you might be thinking, and that is actually for the best. So it was announced a while ago that David Gordon Green, who directed Pineapple Express and Superbad, and a bunch of other movies that I guarantee you that you've seen, was teaming up with Danny McBride to co-write and direct this Halloween reboot or prequel or sequel or whatever it was. We had no real idea as to what it was going to be. Well, it turns out that they actually went and they met with John Carpenter and pitched him their idea. And Carpenter's like, yeah, I like it. It's on board. He says here, they shared their vision of the new movie and wow, they get it. I think you're going to dig it. They blew me away. Now, that might just sound like typical Hollywood jargon, but I like to believe that there's been enough kind of, takes on Carpenter's work over the years, and this dude clearly is up there in years. He doesn't give a shit anymore. He'll say whatever he wants, whether he's for it or against it. No, he's on board to do this, and here's what we found out. So Carpenter is not only giving it the thumbs up, he's also serving as an executive producer on the film, and he might, and I don't know if this is true, this is what the article says, but I hope to God it's true, he might be composing the score. You've got my money. You've got my money. You had my money at him saying it was good. It blew him away. You had my money. But if he comes in and does the soundtrack, oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. I'm on board for that. Oh, I love his music. I still listen to the Big Trouble in Little China soundtrack every once in a while. He does amazing work. I love that man. To a lot of film buffs out there and film school kids and just filmmakers, to us, John Carpenter is a god. He is a god of low budget indie filmmaking, of doing it yourself. This dude is someone we revere. And him coming on board with this just makes me all the more excited to see it. Not only that, we found out just a wee bit of story intel about what this is. The best way to describe it is that it's basically the Superman Returns to Halloween franchise. So this is going to take place after 1981's Halloween 2, and it's going to forget the rest ever happened. So no Season of the Witch, right? No Halloween 3, no Halloween 4, no Halloween 5, 6, 7, or H2O. We can all forget H2O ever happened. So we're good there. Also that Busta Rhymes one, I think Halloween 8, whatever the 8th one was called. It doesn't even matter. It was bad. All right. But that's all going to be gone. Michael Myers won't have supernatural powers. It's done. It's going back to straight horror. And that's what I did like about what Rob Zombie did 10 years ago. The first reboot that he did, I thought was good. The sequel was not very good. And I didn't care for it at all. But the first one I thought was well told, although it should have definitely been just the prequel leading up to the events of the first film, and not having half the movie be a prequel and then half the movie be a very fast retelling of the first movie. So we can forget that happened now. So we're going to still be hopefully dealing with Laurie Strode's character, at least having some kind of reference. I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis would be involved at this point. I don't even want her to have a cameo appearance, you know, like just kind of let that go. But at the same time, her death in Halloween 8 was dumb. It was just tacked on, it felt like. So we can just move away from that. And if they want to bring her back in as more of like an H2O scenario, I'd be okay with that. But this is taking place in the 1980s. So yeah, unless they're going to be able to digitally de-age, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis by over 30 plus years, 35 years or so, then yeah. So this movie's coming out on I think it was on October 31st, 2019. Let me just double check that here, so I want to make absolutely sure. Yeah, October 31st, 2018 is when it comes out. So we have just over a year until it releases, and I will be there day freaking one, popcorn in hand, ready to be scared. I simply cannot wait. All right, guys, that wraps up this episode of $3 Theater. Please leave your comments below. If you haven't already, thumbs the video up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit on that bell button so you can get all the updates when I post new stuff like my Orville review and recaps that are going to be coming out every single week while that show's on, as well as other shows I might start doing that with as well. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, allowing me to geek out with you guys about movies and whatnot. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Peace out.